Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into a all new happy hour edition here on the Pack a Day podcast. Thanks so much for joining me. Always appreciate the love and support and all the questions and everything. So happy Friday. So I was just a second behind. Had to go grab a Leinenkugel Summer Shandy. I know it's like the last of the Summer Shandy season, but what can you do? Had to get one while I was before I came on. So hope everyone's doing well. Happy Friday. We're getting ready for what I think is going to be a super exciting Packers-Falcons game. This is another one that I just like. You go into Bears and Packers and you didn't really know exactly what to expect going into that game. And was it going to be, from a Jordan Love standpoint, what was he going to be? Was Fields going to take a step? You had no idea. Now it's kind of like the same thing of you beat Chicago, but what does that really mean? And the Falcons beat the Panthers, but what does that really mean? And now you've got this really fun matchup in week 2. So I'm really pumped for this one. I think this whole season is just going to be such an amazing litmus test for this really young team. So cannot wait. All right. Kevin, I saw the first question in here. Thanks so much for the question. And obviously for anyone that wants to ask questions, start getting them in. Happy to answer anything that you guys want to go over. Any super chats or anything like that, we'll get to first and prioritize, but we'll try to get to as many questions as I have. Probably looking at closer to like 30 to 40 minutes for today's show. Probably not going to be able to make it a full hour, but try to get to as many questions as I can. But Kevin asks, how much of an impact has Tom Clements made on Jordan Love? These are always really difficult questions to answer. And what I mean by that is, like, we could talk about even like the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, position coaches, things like that. And it's like, when people always ask of like, well, how big of an impact is like Adam Stenavich making? Like, is he a good offensive coordinator? I don't know how we would possibly know. I don't know how anyone could possibly answer that. Like, I'm sure he's still involved in the offensive line group in some capacity, but Luke Butkus is the offensive line coach. Like, if like the offense as a whole has certainly some to do with Adam Stenavich, but like it's Matt LaFleur's offense, it's Matt LaFleur's play calling. And like, so I'm sure he does a lot of game planning and advanced scouting and, putting some red zone and third down stuff in. So I'm sure Stenavich has his fingerprints on things, but it's like, it's so hard for us to know. And from like the position coach standpoint, there's certain things where like last year you could tell the defensive backs just weren't on the same page. It felt like it was disjointed from what Joe Barry was doing. And you weren't surprised, when they decided to make the change in the defensive backfield from a coaching standpoint. If there's a position group where everyone is underachieving, you're certainly going to probably take away a little bit from that position group's coach. If there's a position group that's overachieving, you're probably going to give that coach some credit for that. But it's so hard to tell. Even the portion that like we're open to practice, we're seeing a little of the individual drills that they do for like 5 minutes. And even in training camp, like we can see some of it, but to know what sort of impact those guys are having is really, really difficult. But from a Tom Clements standpoint, we know the impact that he had on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has gone on about it forever, about the impact that he had on him. And I don't think it's a coincidence that when we really started to see Jordan Love, kind of take off and show the progress, was when Tom Clements came, back to Green Bay. And this is something too that I will give Aaron Rodgers a ton of credit for. And Matt LaFleur too. So Matt LaFleur, and the coaching staff kind of went to Aaron Rodgers and kind of asked him who they wanted the quarterbacks coach to be. And I wholeheartedly believe, I think part of it is that Aaron wanted Tom for himself, but I legitimately wholeheartedly believe that a huge part of why he wanted Tom in Green Bay was for Jordan Love, like sincerely. And the reason I believe that is because I don't think there was much left for Aaron to learn from Tom Clements. In fact, I would bet you that Aaron Rodgers could probably coach the Tom Clements playbook and be his assistant coach at any given time and coach all the same principles that Tom Clements would go over. So I don't think Aaron really needed Tom for himself. And maybe it was a level of comfortability there. I don't doubt that whatsoever. But I literally think that his say in that was to really help and mentor and develop Jordan, not necessarily so he could take over for Aaron or anything like that, but I just think he cared about him and he thought that Tom would be awesome for Jordan Love. And I think we've seen that. So like I said, it's really difficult to tell. I couldn't look you in the eye and be like, oh yeah, that little like hitch that he does this way. Like that's a Tom Clements thing. But I do think we've seen Jordan so far. And you know what? I'm not even going to say it because I'm not going to jinx anything, but there have been some things that Jordan has done really, really well that I think are very much a part of the Tom Clements system and things that he preaches and teaches on a day-to-day basis. So I think a lot, but those are really hard things to like tangibly show evidence for, but I do think he's had a big impact on it. MU Wade 3, when do you start worrying about Gary's extension? If he becomes a free agent in the offseason, it's going to get done. I would be beyond shocked if this does not get done. I just don't see a world like The only world in which this doesn't get done is if Rashan thinks he's like a top 2 edge rusher in the league. Like he should be Nick Bosa, if he should be, anything in that range. That complicates things a bit because he's quite like if he's just not there. He's not Micah Parsons. He's not TJ Watt. He's not Nick Bosa. He's in that next tier. But I still think there's like, you could probably pay him close to what TJ Watt got on a similar contract, and you're probably fairly happy with that deal if you're Green Bay because the edge position continues to go up. We just saw what Bosa got. So we'll see, but I don't think there's any reason to have concern. He's going to be back. At worst case, they franchise him, so he's not going to be gone. And I think they'll definitely get a deal done. So I would be very surprised if we exited the calendar year of 2023 and Rashan Gary didn't have some sort of long-term extension done. And like I said, so your question going back to like when to start to worry, like I said, I don't think there's any reason to worry because the very, very worst case scenario is they franchise him. So it would probably be 2025 free agency if he still doesn't have a long-term deal done. That's when you start to worry. Where you put the odds for each injured player to play. Thanks so much for the chat. I don't have a good feel for that. I do think Quay will play, but the thing that complicates that just a little bit is that he's not officially out of the concussion protocol yet, and he has to clear that in order to play. But I think Quay is going to play. That would be my first one. That's the one I feel best about. From there, I don't know. The thing about Bakhtiari that I think we need to start talking about is this is the same field. And I think Zach Cruz brought it up and some others have started to bring it up of this is the exact same field that Aaron Rodgers, like type of field that Aaron Rodgers played on when he had the Achilles injury. Last year, David did not play. I think it was in London on that sort of artificial surface. And it wouldn't totally shock me if they just decided, hey, maybe this is the week to rest David a little bit. And maybe, maybe they give Rasheed Walker a shot to start at left tackle. That could easily be the case. So I think David is legitimately questionable for this one, and maybe more of just like hey, let's keep him fresh long-term. Let's have his next game be in Green Bay against New Orleans. I could see that being the case. So I think that's a legitimate 50-50 toss-up. Christian finally practiced even in a limited basis. He seemed to be much better and much closer this week than at any point last week. I doubt he probably did any sort of team activities on Friday, although tough for me to say with any level of certainty. I think that's a legitimate 50-50 coin flip. And I think Jones is probably the least likely to play of the 4. However, you can tell they're trying to get him up to speed and ready to play. And you can tell that Aaron's trying to get up to speed and ready to play. If I had to guess, though, I think they're probably cautious with him. So I feel best about Quay. I have no idea on Bakhtiari. I am 50-50 at best at Jones and probably right around the same. Like, I know those are lame answers, but I think they're all legitimately questionable. And I think they could go either way. Last week, I had a really good feel. I had a good feel that Dobbs would play, and I did not think that Christian Watson would play. And obviously, like right after that, it came out that he was going to be out for the game. But you could see that coming. I also had a great feel that Bakhtiari would play. That one seemed easy. This one, I think these are real 50-50s with probably Quay being the best opportunity to play. Steven, excited to see Wilson get his opportunity. I would not hold your breath too much on that. I think we see if Jones is out, I do think we see some Wilson, and I do think we see Dillon as the 1, and then Wilson as the 2 with a handful of running plays here and there. But I would expect Patrick Taylor still to be called up. I would expect them to go with a 3 running back set. I think Dillon will be your primary, bell cow, your primary carrier on the day. I would expect Patrick Taylor to be your third down guy. That would be my expectation there. Patrick Taylor to play on special teams, and then Emmanuel Wilson to get, like I said, a few carries here and there. I don't think he's going to be a major part. Even if Jones is out, I don't expect him to be a major part of the game plan. If Jones does play, I think he's probably inactive again. I think they probably pull up Patrick Taylor again and they go Jones, Dillon, and Taylor. They could consider having 4 running backs, but I don't think so. And I just think the third down ability for Patrick Taylor is going to trump out, what Emmanuel Wilson can do just as a runner. So I wouldn't get too excited about exactly what Wilson's going to get in this game. If Jones is out, he's going to get a little bit more of an opportunity. No question about that. But overall, if he gets more than like 6 carries, even with Jones out, unless they're like up by a bunch and just running the football a ton, I'd be pretty surprised. Yeah, Tyler, we just talked about it. I think it does very much have to go into play with him having to go and play on turf this week. Andy, shout out to Mike Wall. Is he your favorite guest? I don't have favorites. I love all of my guests, but he does a tremendous job. And I really enjoy talking Packers with him. There's different levels of expertise that everyone brings to the table, and everyone has like different things, different niches. And just Mike's playing career and his X's and O's acumen and just like his way of thinking for things is really, really fun. And I know that when I turn on and hit the record button with him every week, it's one that I really look forward to a lot. So no favorites. I think everyone does a phenomenal job that we have on. Otherwise, I wouldn't have them on. But I do think Mike does a tremendous job, and I am very excited to talk with him every single week. Zach, if DeGuara gets a second contract, does he break the third round curse? He's been a solid contributor for his 2 healthy years. I don't think that would break the curse, so to speak. I think you have to have a legitimate starter that plays well to kind of break the third round curse. Like, that's a top 100 pick. Like, at some point when you've had decades of top 100 picks, you need to find a starter, at least somebody that's legitimately contributing to your team in some major way. I think Sean Ryan has a chance down the line to potentially become a starter. We'll see that. He has a long way to go. I don't think he's anywhere near that quite yet, but I think he has the potential. Tucker Kraft has that, potential down the line as well. So hopefully that's the case. I'm still more of just trade away those third round picks, get something in return and see what you can do with it, because it has been an issue. I think Morgan Burnett, probably the last one that played any significant time in a legitimate starting role, but it has been a struggle. And no, I don't think just him getting a second contract as a solid contributor on a cheap deal would necessarily break that curse for me. Bucky, hello from Germany. Hello from Green Bay, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us all the way from Germany. Really appreciate that. Happy hour cocktail. Bears awaiting for Sunday. Oh, beers awaiting for Sunday. Yes, I'm all in. Thanks for the chat. All right. Does the Falcons offense or defense pose a bigger threat to the Pack? Easily the defense. I'll be totally transparent. I do not think this is a very good Falcons team after watching them against Carolina. They're good. They're fine. And we don't have a great feel for either of these teams to be real. But, man, I watched that Falcons offense. Bijan Robinson is a certified problem, like a massive problem. Algier is a really good running back. Their offensive line is solid, not spectacular. I think a couple of those guys on the offensive line are a little bit overrated. I think Kyle Pitts can be a problem. I think we'll see a better Drake London than what we saw against Carolina. I don't think Ritter is there. I just don't. I think he's Justin Fields without as good of scrambling ability. That's kind of how I see it. They did not trust him throwing the ball on a lot of the third downs. I think there was 5 third and longs. I think they threw screen passes on 4 of those. He threw one ball down the field that Kyle Pitts kind of had to go and get. It was a decent ball, but Kyle Pitts had to, kind of do the heavy lifting to go get that ball. They surrounded him with really good options and a solid offensive line, and there's a recipe for success there. But there's some playmakers that scare me, and Green Bay's going to have to do a really good job of tackling in this game to make sure that you have to make Desmond Ridder do the heavy lifting. You have to make him get the explosive plays through the air downfield. You can't let it be he gets the ball to Bijan Robinson on a little flare pass and Bijan takes it 80 yards to the house. You can't let it be that Kyle Pitts is taking a 8-yard crosser and taking it 50 yards. Like, you've got to make sure that you're doing a great job of tackling, that these guys don't get a ton of yards in the open field. And if you can do that, you're going to win, because Desmond Ridder can't beat you with his arm. So the defense, and on the defensive side of the ball, same thing. Like, I don't think this is a great defense, but I think Grady Jarrett's really good on that defensive line. AJ Terrell will pose some problems at corner. He's a really good corner. And then at safety, we saw what Jesse Bates can do. 2 interceptions. One of them was phenomenal. And then you had a forced fumble by him as well. He completely turned that game on his head. Without Jesse Bates, Panthers maybe win that game. So he's a big time player. Jordan Love's going to have to be very cognizant of where he is at all times, making sure he's looking him off, and that Jesse Bates doesn't get a couple of the, those easy quote unquote interceptions, and just letting him be the veteran ball hawk that he is. All right. Jay Western, would I beat Wes Hott in arm wrestling? I don't have confidence that I can beat anyone in arm wrestling. That is, there's a reason I'm a podcaster and not a football player, Jay Western. I'm not. I will say this. I have never, ever in my life, and I've done a lot, I've never lost a thumb war. Never. That thumb there, that is a massive thumb. It's like double jointed. And you are not beating me in a thumb war. So if anyone would like to take me on, I will bet a summer shandy or a old fashioned at any time anyone wants. Never in my life have I lost a thumb war. So Arm wrestling, I don't know. Thumb wrestling, Wes and anyone else that wants to challenge is going down. All right, Franklin, how does the quarterback improve accuracy throughout their career? It's the little things. It's making sure your feet are planted in the right direction, that you're marrying your footwork with your vision on the field and your eyes on the field. It's making sure that you're doing things consistently all day, every day to improve that accuracy. And, it's all fundamental stuff. The more that you like, it's all muscle memory. It's all practice. I think the big thing that you have to remember here for Jordan Love is, yes, this is not his rookie season. This is, he's had opportunities to learn this system and have command of the offense and things like that. We hear it every single year when a new quarterback gets taken. You got to play him. You got to play him because the only way they're going to get better is with reps in the game. You got to play him because the only way that they get better is reps in the game, and on and on and on and on. We hear it every single year. Anthony Richardson, he has to play. CJ Stroud has to play. How is he going to learn if he doesn't play? Well, Green Bay has a pretty good track record of saying, well, that's maybe not the case. Maybe you can let them sit and learn for a while. But there is absolutely the case of you need reps in order to continue to get better. And I think that's the positive here for Jordan. Like some of the things that he is doing, that was his second start in the NFL. His first start as a first-time starter. I know you guys know that, but like to do some of the things he did in that game in his first start as the full-time starter in Green Bay, imagine he starts stacking these things and just some of the muscle memory that he already has and like knowing where to go with the ball and all those sort of things. Now imagine when like the game legitimately slows down for him, because that just takes playing every Sunday, week in and week out. And there's going to come a time where I think everything will slow down for him. And when things slow down, then you can slow down your thinking and your mind and your footwork, and everything starts marrying itself up a little bit. So it's practice, it's habits, it's fundamentals, and then it's just getting live reps. So I don't think Jordan's ever going to be this like, Tom Brady-esque, Matt Ryan, Chad Pennington, where we're just being like, this is one of the most accurate throwers of the football that we've ever seen, Aaron Rodgers, etc. I don't think that's ever going to be Jordan Love. But do I think he can be a 64.5% passer in the league? 100%. I really do. And that's by far good enough when you've got the arm talent, when you've got some scrambling ability, when he has the command of the offense that he does, when he runs what Matt wants to run. Like there's a lot to like about what Jordan's already putting on tape. And I think the more reps he gets, the better he's going to be. All right. What else we got here? How do you rate Michael Jordan and his chances on the offensive line? Thanks so much for being a member, first of all. Right now that's interior depth. We talk about Royce Newman, and I know people aren't huge fans of Royce Newman, understandably so. I get it. I totally do. But Royce Newman has a lot of starts in this league. And by the way, Royce Newman had like a handful of snaps in this last game. He had a nice little game when he got in the game. That was some of the best Royce Newman stuff I've seen in a really long time. So hopefully that's a step forward for him moving forward. But Royce Newman has experience starting in this league, and that's not nothing. That is valuable. When you look across the league right now and the play on offensive line throughout the league, it is way behind what defensive lines, where defensive lines are at. So if you've got some experience and some starting ability, there's value in that. And it's probably never going to be great for Royce Newman. It's probably never going to be great for Michael Jordan. But if you ever get in those emergency situations, rather than having to bring in an undrafted free agent or somebody off the street or picking a guy up from somebody's practice squad, if you've got a guy that knows your system, that has legitimate starts in this league, that's valuable depth to have. And I think that's what Michael Jordan is. I think that's what, Royce Newman is. You don't want them being in your starting five. You don't even want them probably in your top 8 or 9. But if they're like your 10th or 11th or 12th offensive lineman, if you really have to break glass in case of emergency, having guys who have started in this league significant snaps, like that is, really valuable to have. So I think it's just interior offensive line depth. And if you look at the interior of the offensive line, I don't think they want to move Zach Tom anymore. Like you want to keep Zach Tom at right tackle as much as possible. And if you look at the rest of the interior, you've got your 3 starters in Meyer, Elton, and John Runyon Jr. You've got Royce Newman, you've got Sean Ryan, and then they didn't have anyone else. So having, Michael Jordan be able to be somebody who has starts in this league, go in and play on the interior if they would have that emergency situation, I think that's really valuable. All right, let's see. Trying to get some member chats here. The lady yesterday was awesome. Great sense of humor. Are we talking about Carmen from today's show? If so, she's amazing. Guys, I'm so excited about all our guests this year. I think it's going to be a really, really fun season. And, Carmen did an amazing, amazing job. Watched Wall's show yesterday. He convinced me the Packers are the much better team. Yeah, they are. They are the better team. Here's what I'm afraid of in this game. I'm afraid of Green Bay being a young team. I'm afraid of them coming off a divisional rivalry win. There was a lot of them, it was great that they got that win early, I think, and it didn't end up being like this really emotional game, but that was a hyped up game for both of those teams. So they go in, they get the win, they're excited over it. Now you have to go on the road again. You have to go down to Atlanta, and can you pick up another big win in Atlanta on the road? This is a young team to go and get 2 road games. I don't care who you are playing. I don't care if it's the 2 worst teams in the league. To go back to back on the road and win 2 straight games for a young team, that's an important step to take. So what I'm looking for here is how focused are they and can they avoid the mistakes? If this is a straight up game, like it's a 0-0 turnover margin, Green Bay's winning this game. Or like just maybe even turnovers is a bit like mistake. If whoever wins the mistake battle in this game, meaning having less mistakes, I know that's basic. I get it. I totally get it. But straight up, Green Bay's the better team. So Atlanta's going to have to be the one that gets the turnovers. They're going to have to be the one that the ball bounces their way. They get a big special teams kick return or some crazy fluky thing to happen. If Atlanta gets that, they're going to probably win. If they don't get that, I think on a straight up even level, Green Bay wins the game. So I really think Green Bay is absolutely the better team, but you got to be sure as a young team that you go in focused, you take care of the football, you don't have any of those young rookie mistakes, and you take care of business. Because if you do, you're going 2-0 and you're going back to Lambeau Field against the Saints as a undefeated football team. All right. I think we can depend on Atlanta's bad play calling coach and his stupid mustache to help us win. I'm sure that Arthur Smith would love to have a really good quarterback at his disposal and open up the offense much, much more. He doesn't have that. So you have to play the cards that you are dealt. And Desmond Ridder is not a great downfield quarterback. He just isn't at this point. He's got an okay arm. And he's got a good arm. He's got good mobility, but he's not a polished passer by any means. He's not a pro level quarterback by any means at this point. So you have to figure out ways to navigate around that. And your way around that, and the team knew it too with the players that they acquired, from the Drake Londons to the Kyle Pittses to the Bijan Robinsons, the Tyler Algiers, like all those guys. Like you have to put talent around them so that they can do the heavy lifting, and it's not all on Desmond Ridder. And then you've got to play really sound defense as well. So, I think Arthur Smith is a good coach. I think he's got a good mind for it. I just think he's kind of playing with an arm tied behind his back when you don't have a quarterback that you can trust throwing down the field. Gary asks, is DeGuara the man on the bubble? I don't think he's on the bubble. I think he's going to play out this season. I just think he's a free agent after this year, and then that probably does it for him. He could easily be back, but you also remember like Sims, Musgrave, Kraft aren't going anywhere at tight end. And you have Henry Pearson as a fullback that you probably bring back. He's on the practice squad now. He probably gets a training camp invite again next year. I just think you start going in a different direction. This league, I'll say this a million times over. This league is about finding and developing Pro Bowl caliber talent. Once you prove that you're just kind of a guy, and I don't mean that with disrespect to anyone, but once you prove you're just kind of a guy, you start looking elsewhere. You start developing like, all right, how can we let's get somebody else in the door that maybe they will develop into a Pro Bowl caliber talent. Because you can find Josiah DeGuaras, you can find Royce Newmans, you can find a lot of these guys in a lot of different places, and you're going to be just fine. If like half the team right now, half the guys on this team weren't on the roster and you had to replace them with another like half, like the bottom half, like you're probably the exact same team. So you're looking at how can we find and develop talent that can become Pro Bowl or all pro level players. And it's like Chris Barnes is a great example of this. Chris Barnes is a nice football player. Like you find him as an undrafted free agent. He gives you 3 years of solid linebacker play that you're always looking to replace, but if you need it, it's going to be fine. You're not going to lose because of Chris Barnes, but you're never going to win because of Chris Barnes. That's where Josiah DeGuara is at. He gave you 4 years. He's fine. He's not going to lose you any games, but he's not going to win you any either. So once you get to that point, you just kind of move on. You let him sign somewhere else and you start recycling over and you start trying to develop talent who can become the guy that's going to actually help you win games. So I think it's probably, I don't think he's on the bubble, but this is probably his last year in Green Bay. Preston, thanks so much for the chat. Based off of pure talent, from what we've seen of Love so far, what do you see as a comparable ceiling for him? Oh, man. A comparable ceiling. That's a really good question. I'm trying to think of a quarterback that is in that range. I don't maybe like a Dak Prescott level, and I think he has a higher ceiling than that, but I think as like an attainable like current ceiling, somewhere around like the Dak Prescott range where he's a really good quarterback. You're probably going to give him a long-term deal. And then the question is always, can he be the guy that gets you to the promised land? I think that's probably where it's maybe trending a little bit. That's not a bad place to be in. And maybe Dak's going to get Dallas to the promised land this year. You don't know. But I think that's probably somewhere in that range. But the thing about Jordan is what we've learned so far this season is where the floor is. We know he's a solid quarterback at work. He's a starting quarterback. We didn't know that last year. There was legitimate questions of like, would this guy, if he ever gets his opportunity, can he really start in this league? You just don't know. And now we know he is a starter in this league. Now, what we don't know is he going to end up being like the 25th best starter? Is he going to end up being like the 15th best starter? Is he going to end up being the 5th best starter? That ceiling, that's what we don't know yet. And that's what's going to be really fun to see, kind of play out through the course of this year is where can he get to? And I mentioned it earlier. This is his second start in the NFL, and he's doing some really, really, really impressive stuff in his second start in the NFL. He is younger than Sean Clifford, who Green Bay just drafted this year. So he has a lot of progress still to make. He has a lot of upside still. And I wouldn't put a ceiling on it. I just know that what we've learned so far is that the floor is pretty dang high, and he is a legitimate starter in this league. But I like I said, I think somewhere in that Dak Prescott range right now where it's really good, but you're always maybe like wondering, can he get you to the promised land? That's where I kind of see it right now. But I think there's a step higher for that than for Dak out there. I think there's a step higher than that for Jordan out there too. It's just going to be, sort of remains to be seen what level he's going to get to. All right. Ritter would probably be better on the lines, for example, because he has heart, but needs a guy to develop him. Side note, Ben Johnson most likely will be gone next season due to his good offensive mind. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Ben Johnson is incredible. And I'm really interested to see how good this Lions offense can be this year after they were so good last year. It was an okay game in Kansas City for the offense. Not great. They had the pick six, remember? So they only put up 14 points of offense. Jamison Williams out right now. I thought they did themselves a disservice by not playing Jahmyr Gibbs enough, but Ben Johnson is going to be on a lot of people's radar. And I think a lot of, we see it with Jared Goff. Jared Goff made a Super Bowl with the Rams, but it was kind of in spite of Jared Goff, but we saw some really good things from Jared Goff last year, as much as it pains us to say as Green Bay fans, but he did some really good things in 2022. We'll see what 2023 brings, but Ben Johnson, like you said, going to be on a lot of people's radar. Let's see what else we got. Really appreciate that, Joseph. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the comments. We talked about this a little bit, Cody. I would like to see Wilson's potential in a game that matters. Will he have more drive? I'm assuming we're talking about Emmanuel Wilson there. I'm not sure what it means. Will he have more drive? But yeah, I do think there's a good chance, especially if Jones is out. Even like I said, even if Jones is active, I think there's a chance that Emmanuel Wilson does get active. But I do think Patrick Taylor is going to play still in this game. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. But I think we all want to see Emmanuel Wilson get some time at some point. And I forget who I think it was Justice that I was talking with earlier this week of like, you at least want to start to see, is there maybe a little bit more there to Emmanuel Wilson as a running back than AJ Dillon? And I'm not quite there yet, but I understand why people want to see. And I kind of want to see it too. Like, let's just see what he can do. Like, he got those opportunities in preseason and you thought like he probably wasn't even going to make the team, and he did enough to make the team. So yeah, we'll see what it brings, but I just wouldn't hold your breath too much that like Emmanuel Wilson's out, even if Jones is out, that he's going to have this like huge, game plan, and like they're going to have a bunch of stuff schemed up from this game. It's just going to be a lot of AJ Dillon, I think some Patrick Taylor with maybe a little bit of Emmanuel Wilson mixed in, but even if that's it, it'll be still nice to see him. With the lack of proven running back depth behind Aaron Jones, does he stick around for 24-25, especially if this team is on the rise going into next year? It's a great question. I think a lot of it's going to be dependent upon how he gets through this year. He's going to be 30 next year. Yeah, 30 next year. He'll turn 29, I think, in December, 30 in December of next year. So you hit that dreaded age for basically any player, but certainly for a running back. And I think a lot of it's going to be how he gets through this season. Does he still have the juice? We saw it in week 1. He definitely still has the juice, but he had the hamstring injury. Is he kind of banged up through the course of the year? Is the wear and tear starting to get to him a little bit? I think the next thing is, how does this team perform? Are there any running backs that step up? If all of a sudden Emmanuel Wilson looks amazing, like then that changes the calculus a little bit. I will say that like no matter what happens, I do expect them to take a running back probably in the first 4 rounds next year, just to start getting some new young talent in the door. But listen, when Matt LaFleur says Aaron Jones is the heart and soul of the team, he's not lying. Like, he is the heart and soul of that locker room and of that team, and has a massive impact on this franchise overall. So if they can figure out a contract number that makes sense for both sides, and we've seen Aaron be willing to take a little bit of a discount in the past, I'm sure both sides would love Aaron to retire as a Packer in some capacity, but a lot of the times the business of football gets in the way. We've seen that a ton, and you have to start going in a different direction at some point. So we'll see. We all love Aaron. There's nobody that doesn't love Aaron Jones. He's the best. You want to see him on the team. The team is better when he's on the team. It's just, the contract, the age for a running back, the wear and tear, all that stuff starts to add up. And that's where the business decisions have to come in, and we'll see what happens. But I guess I would love to see him back for another year if they can make it work in some capacity. Cheddarhead, thank you so much. Just want to let you know I listen to Pack a Day every morning during my morning coffee and poop before work, and I appreciate you for that. Now I'm going to have that in my mind every time I'm recording a podcast, that Cheddarhead, every time that you're in the bathroom in the morning, you're listening to me. So cheers to that, I guess. I appreciate you a ton, and thanks so much for the super chat there. It's probably in the top comments of Pack a Day happy hour chats of all time. Cody, thank you as well. It's super nice of you, my friend. All right, Matt LaFleur needs to avoid misusing Dillon like last week. No more sideways. This is where I'm at with A.J. Dillon. I think there is a way to make A.J. Dillon work on this team and be a solid to good running back. I don't think Green Bay's ever figured that out exactly. How to use Jones and Dillon in conjunction. I think there's that old, who's the running? Tiki Barber, was it? I know Jacobs was his last name. Why can't I think of it? Was it Ben Jacobs? No, it's not Ben Jacobs. That was his first name. Somebody help me in the chat, please. But like Jacobs and Barber at running back, where you've got the old Thunder and Lightning. And man, that is going to bother me now. Man, all right. Somebody please help me. Jacobs, which running back Jacobs for the Giants? Brandon Jacobs? Brandon Jacobs. There it is. Thank you, Matt. Brandon Jacobs and Tiki Barber, the Thunder and Lightning. Like, I think everyone has that. No, not Ron Dane. But Ron Dane and James White maybe, or we're going in a totally different direction. But I think there's the idea of like the Thunder and Lightning. And, I don't necessarily think that it has worked that way in Green Bay. I think a part of the problem, and I've said this on numerous occasions in the past, is it feels like every time Aaron Jones gets going, which we saw last week, this is a perfect example of it. Every time Aaron Jones gets going, it's like, oh, we got to get A.J. Dillon involved in the game. And then every time A.J. Dillon gets going, it's like, oh, we really need to get Aaron Jones back in the game. And they don't really complement each other that well. And both of these backs, I feel like, kind of are rhythm-based backs where once they get going, you kind of just got to let them cook. And you don't just have to let's give them a break. And I understand the wear and tear aspect of it for Aaron Jones, but I've almost said this in the past. I would almost rather you go instead of all right, we're going to give Aaron the first quarter and then Dillon the second quarter, and then we'll ride the hot hand in the third quarter. And then the fourth, we'll see what's going. I would rather you go into a game 12 games out of the year or 11 games out of the year and be like, this is an Aaron Jones game. And then 5 games of the year being like, these are going to be A.J. Dillon games. And we're going to rest Aaron a little bit more in those games and almost have them be the focal point of the offense so that you can build an offense around them, so that you can get that running back the majority of the carries, keep the hot hand when they're going, and do it that way. Because they just have not found that rhythm at any given point. So that's number one. The other thing that I think you have to be careful of, and you mentioned this, of no more sideline to sideline with A.J. Dillon. Matt LaFleur has said one of the great things about A.J. Dillon is that they don't have to change their offense when A.J. goes in. He can do the same things that Aaron Jones can. He can't. And it's time to stop having that idea. They are 2 totally different backs, and you should not be using them in the same way. Yeah, it's great that A.J. Dillon can catch a ball out of the backfield. He's not a dynamic pass catcher. If he takes that angle route, in that same route that Jones runs on the angle route, does he even get the 4th and 3 conversion on that play? I don't think he probably does. I don't know that he runs that route. if he has that screen, pass on the right side, he's going to get yards because it was such a perfectly blocked and designed play. But maybe he gets 10 yards less than what Aaron Jones got. Like, you have to have certain things drawn up the way that Jones likes them, but you also have to make sure that you have set plays for AJ Dillon. And I know you can't change your offense and just be like, all right, Jones is in, so we're going to run, zone read, and then Dillon's in, so we're going to run power. It can't be just something as simple like you can't change your offense like that, but you've got to play to those players' strengths. And I don't think Green Bay's done a great job of that either. So I don't think you can treat them as the same running back. I don't think that you can, just be like, yeah, Dillon can do everything Jones. No, he can't. So stop pretending. Let them do their own things. Let them be their own selves and let them play to their strengths. And if you do that, you're going to be in a much better position. But they also have to figure out, it was Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw. You're right. Thank you so much, Iman. I don't know why my brain is misfiring with the different Giants running backs over the year, but thank you so much. But yeah, I do think they got to figure out the rhythm better. And I think they got to make sure that, they're playing to both of those running back strengths. Manuel, thanks for the question. Any possible deadline trades Green Bay would realistically attempt? I don't think so. If there's injuries at a position, and listen, they inquired about, Taylor. So, maybe they'll re-show interest. But if they're asking for Christian Watson, I don't think Green Bay is going to be too eager to get back on the phone with Indianapolis. I think if there's some injuries at a position, they would consider it. Like if they just got completely annihilated, I think they'd have to be in like it's not Josh Jacobs. It's Brandon Jacobs. I'm done with that whole chat. It's Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw. But I think they would have to be probably like undefeated or maybe one loss around the trade deadline to even consider it. I think Brian understands that anything they get out of this season from a playoff type run is a bonus. And this team, as good as they might play, is not a player away from winning a championship. And I'll never limit them. I'll never say that they can't. I've seen crazier things. The Leicester City run in the Premier League in the past decade is a perfect example of that. No one in a million years would have bet them to win the Premiership, and they did. So like there are crazier sports stories that would happen than the Packers winning the Super Bowl this year. But in all likelihood, and Brian knows, they're not a player away. So you're much better off sort of waiting until and just letting this core team develop as a young team together. I've been saying all along that they're going to have 2 first-round draft picks next year. That's not the case anymore, but they're going to have 4 top 100 draft picks next year. And I think they're still going to be able to add a lot of youth. They're going to have probably a little bit more wiggle room in free agency, although not a ton. But I think you let this team grow together. You don't try to make any all-in moves right now. And you just kind of let things come to it as is. But if they're undefeated, maybe one loss and a right deal sort of shows itself, or that they really get banged up at one position, maybe. But I don't think that they're going to probably look at it that way. All right, Arnaldo, thanks so much for the chat. And just a heads up, guys, I'll probably be about 8 more minutes here. Hi, Andy. Do you see any scenario of Green Bay actually trading for someone before the deadline? That's really funny. I should have read it first. But who are your trade candidates for them, the current 53-man roster? I guess we can look at it from the other side of things, is would they trade anyone away? It's interesting because I think the player that was probably most likely to be maybe on the trade block where that they would actually trade someone away would have been Yash Nijman, just with the depth that they have, especially once Luke Tenuta comes back. They could be like, all right, we've got Rashid as the top guy, and then you still have Caleb Jones. You've got Luke Tenuta then. Like, we've got enough tackles. They could argue that. Royce Newman can kick out the tackle. Like, they've got some options there. So that would have been the one, but with him restructuring his deal, now it does make him more valuable to other teams because they're going to pay him less, but Green Bay is going to take on more dead cap in that scenario. So it's possible that'd be the one that I think if they traded someone away, maybe some team came calling for Yash and gave a decent pick in exchange for that. But outside of that, I don't see anyone on Green Bay's roster that they're going to probably trade away at this point. All right, what else we got? Oh, Cheddarhead. We got a new Cheddarhead one. All right, and we have no bathroom talk on this one, which is even better. Notable Madden ratings that infuriate me. I love these two, Cheddarhead. I'm glad you brought this up. Musgrave just went up, though. I think Musgrave went up to a 68 now, if I remember correctly. But yes, it takes a while sometimes for those ratings to change. Like Zach Tom is such a great example, although I do think he saw a pretty big increase this week as well. Now I want to check, actually. I know also Madden rating talk, probably not what everyone necessarily came for, but these are really fun. But Zach Tom this week, went from Oh, so he went up 1. He went up to a 73 this week. And then Luke Musgrave went up. Oh, no, he stayed at a 68 this week, so he did not go up. But yes, there are some very frustrating ones on there. They are slow to upgrade. They're always slow on the offensive line to upgrade as well, which is really, really frustrating. But yeah, that's what you get with Madden sometimes, which unfortunately is what it is. Packers will go undefeated in division games. I like the way you think. They can easily go 2-0 against Chicago. They can go 2-0 against Minnesota. Detroit's been an issue for them, and that's a team that's given them trouble going back to just last year when they lost both and the game that could have got them in the playoffs. So I would love it if that happened, but I think they've got some work to do if they want to get to that point. Yes, Steven, it's amazing what can happen in contract years. He is very much in a contract year. I don't care if you want to, if he goes and plays, I'll take him playing awesome this year. That's fine. Sign me up for him to play awesome. What I mentioned earlier this offseason of the safety position being in no man's land is exactly that, where it's unless Anthony Johnson plays amazing because he's actually under contract, there's very few things that could go really well. Because if Savage plays amazing, then you've got the decision for Green Bay of oh, do you want to pay him? Because he had 2 really bad years before that. Are you going to pay him and then he's not going to play the same anymore? And then if you let him walk and then he goes plays amazing for some other team, that sucks too. But as of right now, let's live in the moment a little bit. And if Darnell Savage can play like that through the remainder of the year, sign me the heck up. Let's see. George Costanza, appreciate you as well. And yes, I think Gary will, I think he'll get an extension, like I said, before the calendar year is up. Steven, I don't think they're very good, but I think they can beat Green Bay. So I don't mean to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but both of these teams can be beatable on any Sunday. They're young, they're inexperienced, and it's not like they're powerhouses. I watched this tape over and over for Atlanta. I just wasn't that impressed. I think their defense is good. They're going to pose some problems for Green Bay that Chicago did not. They're going to blitz more than Chicago did, and we're going to have to see how Jordan responds to that and this offense responds to that. So there's going to be some things. And I do think if Jones is out, it's really going to affect this game, which really sucks because I think if Jones and Watson are healthy and Bakhtiari and everyone's just healthy, I think Green Bay has a really big advantage in this game. But I still think Green Bay's better. They just have to avoid some of those mistakes. Second straight road game. That's what you need to watch for. If this is straight up, I think Green Bay wins. No question about it. Packers by 7. I like it, Steven. What's Love's Madden rating? Let's see if I don't know if he went up this week or not. Jordan Love went up 3 points this week from 72 to 75. So he got a pretty big boost this week. All right, probably just 1 or 2 more guys. Then I'm going to get out of here, making sure I got all the super chats. I think I did. Anyone else? All right, friends. Appreciate you guys a ton. This has been a really fun week. A lot of great guests. If you missed any of them, definitely check it out. Carmen Vitale today, Mike Wall today. We had Justice Mosqueda earlier this week, Paul Brettel earlier this week. Tomorrow I've got a Falcons expert coming on to break down Packers Falcons. So you're going to want to check that out. That was Will McFadden. So you're definitely going to want to check out that. Pro Football Focus came on Wednesday. I think those are all the guests. Maybe, am I missing one? I think those are the main ones, but a lot of really fun guests. If you missed any of them, make sure to check it out. And yeah, just appreciate you guys a ton. And yeah, that's it. All right, guys, have a great weekend. I will see you right back here tomorrow with Will McFadden for the show. I'll be on the post-game show as soon as the game is over on Sunday. Any road games, I'll do an episode right after the game, so check that out. Saturday or Sunday morning will be the pregame show. Make sure to check out Pack a Day Podcast memberships if you have not already. There's an extra video, at least an extra video every single week. Also did an extra live Q&A that's going to happen every Thursday night. So if you want that extra Q&A where you get a little bit more opportunity, usually there's 20-ish people in there. So you're going to have more one-on-one time and have the opportunity to ask more questions. So check that out as well. But appreciate you guys a ton. See you tomorrow. Go Pack Go. Packers win this one. Let's do it. See you guys.